Hi, I'm Jalen Rose, and welcome to the Renaissance Man podcast, proudly presented by the New York Post, a show where we cover trends in fashion, entertainment, current events, and everything in between. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special episode. My next guest is a multi-Grammy Award-winning recording artist, songwriter, and producer who is one of the most celebrated forces in the history of music. He's co-founder of the legendary record label LaFace, which launched careers like Usher, Tony Braxton, TLC, Outkast, and more. And check this out. He has numerous top 10 hits, 12 Grammys, 50 nominations. I didn't stutter. 50 nominations and a jaw-dropping roster of collaborations. It is my honor to welcome the iconic Kenneth Babyface Edmonds to the show. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate the love from a fellow Midwesterner. You grew up in Indiana. What was your childhood like?
Growing up in the Midwest, it's kind of, you're from the Midwest, so you know what that's like. We're from actually
Detroit?
Detroit. Yeah, that's
yes, indeed. And I played in Indiana for the Pacers for 6 years, so I know my way around also. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, like, so, Indianapolis was a kind of a big, small town. And it was great growing up there because there was so much music in the streets and and going through school and everything. And it was a place where a musician could grow because there were so many people to work with and so many different artists that you could work with and actually have a chance to, perfect your craft. So I enjoyed it.
Who were the artists you were listening to at that particular time that gave you inspiration?
I mean, the usual from Detroit, all the whole Motown scene, so from the Temptations to Stevie Wonder to Marvin Gaye and Gladys Knight and the Pips, Delphonics, the Moments. There were so many, the Persuaders. There were so many different groups at that time, and then my taste kind of started to grow just from that. I was studying into the Beatles and got into James Taylor and got into other, like kind of pop music stuff. So it was a wide range that growing up there in Indianapolis, I went to a school that was there's probably had 10% Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the music you'd hear walking around wasn't necessarily, R&B. So
right.
It kind of opened up the door for me to kind of hear rock music and also hear, just straight out pop music and stuff.
Well, you clearly had a idea of what you wanted to do and who you wanted to be because you began songwriting at 11 years old. What inspired you to write your very first song?
A girl, it was I fell for this girl named Rhonda Newbolt. And she first moment I saw her, I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. And then I went home and started a diary. And then I purposely started picking up the guitar so I could learn some chords so I could write a song. And that was like the first song I wrote was a song called Here I Go Falling in Love. And it was about her. And I didn't know that that's what I wanted to ultimately be. It was just kind of like my release, because I never played her the song. I was too shy to ever do that. So I just lived, I lived through my music, that was kind of my voice.
What have you learned from writing about love and heartbreak since then?
Absolutely nothing. So, you can write about it and sing about it, but it's different for everybody and every experience is different. So if I learned anything, it's never the same. It's not the same thing all the time. It's, and it is, but the whole idea of writing about it is, it's kind of a release when you're writing about it from your own pain initially, but then when you're still even doing it for other people and you see what they're going through, then there's also something comforting about that, being able to tell someone else's story.
I've seen Smokey Robinson talk about writing for so many different artists and being inspired to do so. For you, what is it like to pen songs for other people and understanding that that song can go on to be a mega hit that you basically coined and delivered to someone else?
I think that was not something that I initially, when I was writing songs, I think I ultimately just wanted somebody to sing it and see how it felt and hope that it felt good. Didn't necessarily know things would turn into big hits. And when they did, it was wonderful. But um, it wasn't like I ever wrote it and I thought that everything was going to turn into that. So I crossed my fingers every time.
Mm,
I would only just write something and hopefully in hopes that people would like it and the artist would like it. Um, and sometimes a lot of times the songs weren't written specifically for that artist. They were songs that I had just written.
mm.
Say, well, let's try this one because I just like to write songs all the time.
What was it like to be in the studio, write songs, and work with the late, great, legendary Whitney Houston?
Whitney it was always great working with her. She was always a lot of fun. She didn't necessarily like to spend a lot of time singing. She liked to
Mm,
get in there and get it done. Um,
mhm,
and so if it was harder for her, if she wasn't a voice one day, then she probably would just stop immediately and say, "We just got to try this another day." And I always appreciated that because I hate banging my head against the wall on something,
mm,
you know, knowing that you're probably not going to get it. Um, so we kind of had our own language with each other, kind of knowing when to go and when to stop. And it was, from the very first time of going in the studio with her and hearing her sing behind that mic, and it was always an amazing thing to hear this amazing, vocalist that to me was my
mm.
favorite of all time. So what a blessing that was.
Your fingerprints have been everywhere in this industry, not only discovering talent, but being very talented yourself in writing. What was it like your initial introduction to TLC?
TLC was uh, I met Lisa and Tion before Chili was in the group. There was actually another girl that was part of the group initially that ended up changing because she just didn't quite gel with them.
Mhm.
And so she ended up leaving, and we were trying to find the right, that right third person. And funny enough, Chili was there's another group we had called Damien Damon. Chili was a background dancer for them,
Mm.
and uh, and she just had that look. And one day we just asked Chili if she could sing, and, she sang a song for us. She said she's got a voice, and then we tried putting them together, and they were incredible. Their personalities, um, the Left Eye was brilliant, and
Mm.
um, conceptually the things that they would come up with and the whole album concepts and the whole way that they kind of just wrote, it was coming from them, and it was incredible to watch these girls turn into these megastars overnight. Uh, it was unique in a situation. It was a unique situation that no one could have predicted that it was going to go like it did.
Mhm.
That's why that's when it's great when you don't really know and then something happens like that.
I was recently at a birthday party, and there's a young gentleman performing named Usher Raymond.
Yes. Mhm.
And I consider him a friend. We have the same barber. Can you recall the first time meeting Usher, being introduced to his talent, and what did you think that he could become? Because he's really become an iconic artist in his own right.
Yes, he has. Usher. The first time I saw Usher was in LaFace's office when he's and we had the room full of uh, our employees and everybody was there working um, and Usher came in to sing and
Mm,
he's just a little kid I don't know, he was like 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
Um, and maybe younger. Can't remember exactly, but he came in and he sang Into the Road.
Mm.
And he went up to every one of these girls that way older than him, and he's flirting with them. He went all the way in, and like, you knew, okay, this kid's gonna be something. And it took a little more time to get him there, but I knew then that he had something, and he's proven over the years that he's had something, and for him to be the icon and be as successful as he is and still in the game, it speaks for itself. I'm very proud of what he's done as an artist.
It seemed like every person that you've influenced, and I appreciate your humility. Gold, platinum, multi-platinum, diamond. Outkast went diamond, one of the greatest rap groups of all time. What about your introduction to Outkast?
Outkast was clearly brought in by Organized Noise, and they were clearly like their own thing,
Mm.
and they we were lucky to be to be in Atlanta and happened to be the company that got them.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't just by the sense of us starting with a label there and being the place that people would want to go to. We got blessed in that because they clearly Outkast for the first hip hop rap act that really kind of came out of Atlanta and really changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so respected from um, every genre, and people give them so much respect, and it's crazy to think that we were a part of that, and part
Mm-hmm.
of and to this day, Outkast still, the name and
Mm-hmm.
the music that they created, it's forever.
And a lot of people don't know the story behind Players Ball. Can you acknowledge for everybody that may not know that that was basically their version of a Christmas song representing Atlanta on you guys' holiday album?
Yeah, it's a Christmas song, but it's also a Players Ball. It's like that stuff was real. Player Ball in Atlanta, it's like they were real players, and they, they would come in their Cadillacs, and it was, these are the thing about Outkast is they gave you real slices of life,
Mm.
within with within the poetry of it all. It was there were real pieces of things that people could relate to because in the South, that's what life was.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a clever way of always being able to present that and tell their story. And that's why they became so important is because they weren't just they weren't just rapping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were talking about life
Mm-hmm.
and not the normal things that some rappers. It wasn't gangster rap. It was everyday stuff that happened, in their world, and it was done in the most clever ways.
When you're partnering with and ladies and gentlemen, I am naming some of the most iconic human beings to ever grace your stages, listen to in your cars, because this man has been the blueprint, the fingerprint for so many, including himself. What is it like when you're in a session with Beyonce?
You know, whether it was Beyonce or the Whitneys or the Aretha Franklins,
Mm.
um, Beyonce is like the thing is I put Beyonce on that same level when I worked with her. Beyonce initially she was just this kid, that was growing in Destiny's Child, and
Mm-hmm.
you could see that she had potential and that she was going to go somewhere. But I don't know that we could have called it for. I couldn't have called it where exactly she was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Very proud of who she has become, and I can see how it happened because she worked so hard. She was not, um, she never played around. She was always serious about her craft,
Mm-hmm.
and those people you can tell when you get in the studio with them. There are those that come that are serious that would want to get it done and want it to be the best that it can be, and she clearly came with that intention. No different than when Aretha Franklin would walk in the room. She'd be business. She'd come in like, all right, let's do this. I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna sing it down 2 times. That's what you get. That's all you're gonna get.
That's classic. That's legendary. And I noticed something as I was naming those artists. It it highlights how the game has changed a lot. It seems like that was an era where you cultivate and you navigate an artist, and it's kind of like putting it in an oven. Versus now, it's like a microwave generation based on the internet and social media. What do you see as changes in the game as it relates to developing artists?
Yeah, I think the thing is the things move so fast. There's not a lot of time to develop artists. You know, they you can put a record out and put a single out, and if it goes, they didn't have any time to really, grow,
Mm,
to, work their, practice their trade, um, get in front of audiences and learn how to perform,
mm,
um, learn how to be hot. You know,
mhm,
there's no training ground for that because everything is so immediate. It doesn't take the same kind of time anymore.
right.
So, um, and look, we used to say the same things in the past about cookie cutter, all the songs sounded like in the '90s. We used to get that same thing then, and you s-
Mhm,
you get the same thing now. So it's all cookie cutter and all sounds alike. There's always been those things,
mm,
but you have to keep your mind open, and whether it sounds a lot alike or whether it's cookie cutter, it doesn't feel good. Doesn't
mhm,
move? Does it speak to you? And for a lot of younger kids and the younger generation, it speaks to them.
mhm,
It may not speak to us the same way because we're not them.
right,
We don't we don't live the life that they live. We don't walk in their shoes. We don't hear things the way that they hear things.
right.
Just as our parents might have not have heard things the way we heard things.
Correct.
So it's ever changing, and sometimes if it feels cookie cutter, well, that's because it's supposed to be cookie cutter right now. And
Mhm,
it was good. And what I always try to do is not be negative about it and try to compare. I try to listen to and see what is it that people like about it? What
mm,
what's speaking to them? And many times it's just the way that they're saying the words. It's what they're saying, is what they're talking about. Um, that we don't relate to the same. Love songs are not the same kind of love songs, but they don't talk about love the same way.
correct.
It ain't, nah, I ain't gonna be lovey dovey like that. Uh, it may come back one day to a certain extent, and then there are ours that certainly go there in their own way. Um, Giveon, he'll have a love song. It'll be different than the ones we did, but
Mm,
nevertheless, it's showing some vulnerability and things. And there's other artists that do that as well. So it's just different than what we did,
mhm,
and I just try to listen and learn from them as well. And learn what um, their language of music and their language of love. It's better to listen with open ears rather than with judging ears.
and that's why you've been able to continue to not only have an illustrious career, but I would say continue to stay current always. That perspective allows you to do that. And on this show, I always like to acknowledge because there's so many young people when you ask them what they want to do for a living. They want to be an artist, they want to be in entertainment, they want to be in sports. And
Yeah.
I like to get candid about the struggles that can come with major success. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges you've overcome in the decades of being in the music industry?
Well, for me, everything was a slow grind. So I didn't have overnight success, and so um, and I had the same issues as everyone had. Signing contracts that weren't great and getting taken advantage of, all those things, and so the more you can read and understand exactly what you're signing, and when you sit with an attorney, when you're going over things, actually sit and go over the paperwork to actually try to understand the business that you're in, so
Mhm.
that you don't have any surprises later in terms of what you signed on for. Um, and I think more importantly, um, there's this thing with artists where um, the more you can have control over your own life,
Mm,
not only just financially, but also creatively,
mhm,
the more you can not have to depend on another writer or another producer in order to, there are so many things at this particular point available to you that wasn't available as I was growing up, like on YouTube, where you
mm,
can sit there and you can learn how to work any kind of whether it's Logic or whether it's Fruity Loops. Uh, there's all different kind of programs that you can learn how to do music. And today with samples and everything, you can learn even just GarageBand.
mm,
There's so many things that you can do uh, to learn how to become your own artist. And the
mhm.
more you do that, and the more you mess with it, then um, the more autonomy you have, and the more you can make those decisions and not depend on others.
Right.
And that's coming from a writer, producer, artist perspective.
Mhm.
And I think that so many times people just kind of put their hands up and think they can't do it, but there's so many things at our hands right now with these computers, with social media, with
Mhm.
everything, all right there. If you just do the research and start and work on it.
How did you get your nickname?
My nickname, funny enough, came from Bootsy Collins.
Ooh.
And which was really funny is that I just walked in the studio one day. The deal was doing demos with them, and I walked in the studio and he just yelled out "Babyface." That was
Wow.
it. Yeah,
The legend, Bootsy Collins, gave you your nickname.
he did.
Now, I'm pretty sure by now you've paid attention to there's one baby face, but there are a lot of babies now.
Yeah,
There are a lot of faces now.
yeah.
So it's only right to ask you, can you give me your top 5 songs that you've written that you consider baby making music?
And that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, everybody picks their own thing, so I don't. I never think of it as baby making music because maybe the only true baby making song that I would probably have that comes to mind. I would only give you the one, which would probably be "Whip and Pill."
Ooh.
Other than that, I don't. I can't really tell you.
And by the way, that's such a classic. That
I
song.
think.
How did that song come about?
Um, well, funny enough, I was heard Pebbles, who was um, married to L.A. Pebbles was having a conversation one day, and she was talking about, she's talking about L.A. She said he got that whip appeal. I said,
Shout to
what?
the OGLA.
And I said, what? And he said, whip appeal. I said, I love that word. So I said, okay, I'm gonna take that word. And so I just took that word and went and wrote the song. Uh,
Wow.
and it was and that she only had said the word. She didn't write any of the song with me, but I ended up giving her credit for it because she said that word.
Right.
And I think it was a word that people had just said, but and I just kind of I said, what I thought in my head, okay, how would Prince do this?
Ooh.
And that's how I approached it. I approached it with Prince was doing this, which was nothing like how Prince would do it. But but
Well, it ended up being a classic. And for our listeners that haven't checked you out in your recent NPR Tiny Desk concert, it's legendary. I'm making sure you guys check that out. What was it like for you walking down memory lane and performing some of your greatest hits?
Those are always fun. When I do live shows, I always go through a medley of songs, and this one was particularly fun because I had Shante Moore and Tank and Avery, and it was um, it was fun because having them sing it with me and just in that intimate setting, and that's just kind of just going for it. Hadn't done that in a while, and so that was a fun actually performance that we did together.
So it seems like you prefer live performances versus recording studio sessions.
No, I prefer them all.
You
Um,
perform all-
it's all part of the same thing for me.
What are the top songs you've ever written that you're proud of? I know that's like asking you your favorite kid. You've been doing this forever. You got so many classics, but can you just acknowledge some of the songs that you've written that people may not realize that you have?
That's hard to look. It is. There's a lot of songs that I've written, and I'm surprised how many songs there actually are for all the different artists I've written over the years. And some things that people forget, and even I forget. I remember going to a concert that Drew Hill was performing at, and I was backstage, and I heard because I had written co-written as well, um, a couple songs. These are the times with Drew Hill, and also We're Not Making Love,
Mm.
and but there's two other songs that I've written for him too, and I forgot what they were, but I heard them playing these songs in the concert. I said, God, that sounds familiar. What is that? What is that? And I went, oh shit, I wrote that. And I still don't remember right now as I'm thinking of it. But so, look, over the years, there's just been so many different songs that I've written and written or produced. And I don't exactly even know how that was even possible.
Mm,
When I look back at how many things that were done. I think I just spent most of my time just writing, and that was and just and constantly inside my closet,
mm,
writing, when in the early days when everybody was out partying,
mm.
inside my closet trying to write another song, so and that's the only way that could have happened because um it was constant. It wasn't always sitting and writing for artists in particular. It was just writing in general,
Mm.
and those songs ultimately found their way, um, to that artist. Some songs didn't find their ways to years later. There's a song I did on Tevin Campbell called "I'm Ready"
Mm.
that I actually wrote when I was in high school. It's like
What?
I was like a senior and wrote that song "I'm Ready," and ended up changing a little bit, but the whole basic idea of the song was written way back then. So so certain things just didn't make it to the right artist till years and years later.
Wow. That's legendary story. And I also want to congratulate you before I let you get out of here on receiving your Impact Award from Hollywood Unlocked. What was that moment like for you?
That was a little surreal. I hadn't got an icon award. I never considered myself an icon. I never just thought of myself that way. You know, um, I've been an artist, but I've been mostly just a writer, producer, and I've kind of always looked at it being that way, um, and co-wrote a lot of songs, co-produced a lot of things, and although I've been behind a a lot of artist successes, I always kind of looked at it. It took all of us to make it happen.
Mhm.
It took that artist singing that song and everybody else that touched it. So it's not just on me. And so it was hard for me to just for the kind of person that I am. I don't gravitate to that. So to get that award and to have and to feel the love in the room, it felt it was a nice feeling to feel that I was really appreciated for all the efforts that I have put in. and for once I could accept it. I used to be hard for me to take compliments.
Mm.
I remember talking to Kenny G once, and because people would go to Kenny G, and I said, sometimes it's just hard for me to take a compliment. What do you do when people come in and praise you, say, "Oh, you're amazing, you're this and that, you're this and that." I said, it always feels a little uncomfortable to me sometimes when they're doing those things. And I asked Kenny, "So what do you do when they say that?" Kenny goes, "Hey, just say thanks. It's great, man. It's great. Say thanks."
Right,
And
right.
and and he's that same way to this day. But and it is really about that. It's like really just being thankful that someone appreciates the work that you've done. And so that ended up being a really good night at the Impact Awards. And
Well, your talent, your hard work, your humility all deserve praise. And I'm very grateful that you took the time to join the show. But before I let you get out of here, I got a rapid fire segment called Gone in 60 Seconds. You ready to do this, Babyface?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. Which musician was the most fun to be in the studio with?
Which musician? Oof. I'll say musicians. TLC, they were the most fun.
What is your favorite song to set the mood?
I don't have one. There's no song I'm gonna set the mood for. So,
I'll give you one. Whip Appeal. How about
okay. Well, I'd have a problem saying the mood with myself singing this song.
that? True. I got you. Which artist would you love to collaborate with in the future?
I'd love to collaborate with Sade and Drake.
Sounds like you already got something written for them to do this.
No, not yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah, we need to make that happen. We make things happen like that on this show. And lastly, but certainly not least, and I appreciate you taking the time. What's next for Babyface? Can we get a tour? What's happening? You need to go on tour.
We're working on something. We're working on some things, trying to figure that out. And so I think that's going to come. And I'm just working on new music in a lot of different genres. And so I'm having a good time. So I'm looking forward to it.
Any new music, thoughts, ideas, artist collaborations that you want to share to tease a little bit?
No, I can't put that out because, you work on it and you don't always know whether it's going to work out. So
True story. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm a huge fan and I can't wait for the tour because I'll definitely be there to support you. Appreciate you taking the time, Babyface.
Appreciate it, buddy.